It's The Perfect Union, the perfect podcast for the perfect country. Brought to you by your perfect host, Hank Thompson, for you, the perfect listener. Hello, everybody. It's me, Hank. Welcome to the show. Perfect Union is the politics wing of Winners and Losers Enterprises and Apocalypse training courses. Don't forget to sign up for our upcoming class, Is Your Mom or Dad Plotting to Overthrow Your Fentanyl Empire? Sign up now to learn how to detect the threats. 10% off with promo code GREATCOUntry. All right, guys. What a time to be alive. Another week in the capitalist dungeon, huh? How you getting by? Doing okay? Let me know on Twitter. Hank Thompson _ somewhere in there. I'm all fucked up on cold brew, so I'm ready to do this. We got a lot of good stories. Just a few. We're talking billionaires. We got a crying, whiny little bitch billionaire to talk about. AOC. I got a bunch of videos. I'm actually doing a whole new way of producing this thing. Recording, blah, 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 behind the scenes stuff that doesn't really matter, shouldn't belong at the beginning of the show, probably turns off new listeners, but that's what we do here at Winners and Losers Enterprises and Perfect Union something or other. Real quick, I am able to export videos, so the YouTube version of the show is going to start going up pretty soon. Going to get caught up on the past episodes that didn't make it up, and all these new ones will be up there too, so that's a fun time. We're going to, one thing I think about in trying to do a political show or just any kind of show, comedy, politics, etc., aside from the shame and embarrassment of forcing myself into this conversation, like the world needs my stupid voice, but is if you succeed, you get threatened by the right-wing violence machine, or doxxed, or they come after you somehow for some reason. So the more successful you get, meaning you build an audience, it becomes a living, you can sustain yourself with it. And then you start to actually make little inroads and waves, puddles, splashes. I don't think you make puddles. Well, I guess, hashtag golden shower. Then it's scary and dangerous. So I'm just like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just focus on making poop stools for the masses? You know what I mean? More like for the asses. That wasn't planned. I didn't plan that. All right, so let's get right to it. So on the CNBC show Halftime Report, which I watch every day, I never miss. So I can't get an erection without it. This guy, Leon Cooperman, came on. Now, he's a billionaire. He's one of the poor billionaires. He's very impoverished. He's only got $3.3 billion. That's not a lot of money. That is just that's barely making rent money. I mean, maybe he can afford a night out to the Red Lobster, maybe a trip to the DQ on the way home, get the extra large Blizzard. But he ain't, he's still using the rewards program at DQ. Try to save up for that extra discount, get an extra long pink spoon. But anyway, he went up on CNBC. We're going to get a little bit into his background later. And was being interviewed about he's not happy that the wealth tax that Elizabeth Warren is proposing, and certainly he's even more afraid of the Bernie tax, but they don't talk about that one. That one's far more aggressive and progressive than Elizabeth Warren's, which is why I'm for it. All these fucking billionaires, they don't deserve a single dime of the money they've stolen from everybody who's done the work, especially these investment scumbags. Oh, wow, it's a skill that you sat around and told a bunch of people to do some research, and then you just make a whole bunch of money doing absolutely nothing that's productive for society. Not saying there's no use to finance. I just think it follows labor and it follows natural resources. It's not actually a leading part of an economic activity. It's a functional part of economic activity. Loans, investing should be lubricant to better the lives of everybody, of the economy as a whole, not just to enrich pieces of shit like this guy who can't even afford someone to tell him to fix his fucking toupee. Anyway, let's get into the interview here. It's a little bit long. Hopefully this isn't too boring, but I've got a couple parts picked out. Let's just hit play, see what happens.
The problem, some say, is that it's not prosperous for enough people. That those at the top are...
Last time I read the figures, basically...
Okay, if your racism alert's not going off, it's about to.
Say what you want to say about Donald Trump, but what he can say very fairly is since I became president, 5 million more people are at work. We have the lowest level of unemployment amongst blacks.
Ding, 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 ding. Woo, woo, racism alert. There it is. That's one of the right-wing tropes they like to tout out, the black unemployment rate. It's what they're saying is, hey, blacks, you should be grateful. Be grateful. You're not showing us enough gratitude, you ungrateful ingrates, which is redundant.
minorities in our history. We have the highest level of employment.
I know there was full employment when blacks were slaves, wasn't there, you motherfucker? Huh? Why would that's what they would be saying? Oh, they all got jobs. They didn't even have to have an interview. They were just born into the job. Now, I don't know any of my friends who got a job when they were born into. Well, actually, that's how this generational hierarchical wealth works. Let's keep going.
In our history, okay? I have other issues with the president, but basically, I have to say on the economic side, he's accomplished a lot.
Oh, yeah. It's also bizarre that we give presidents credit for the economy. They do have a lot of control. Maybe control is not the right word, but influence. Certainly, they can change all kinds of, markets respond to words they say. So the reason, thus why we should have a responsible, thoughtful person as president, like Obama, whatever you want to say, he is thoughtful. That's what he's famous for, pausing to think, which is smart. You shouldn't, I tend to fill silence with rambling, babbling. But most people fill it with ums and oohs and ahs, and I think I'm prone to that too. But Obama or Trump is not the kind of person you'd put in charge if you actually cared about an economy. It is just weird that we give credit to them because and they love to take credit when it's going well. And for some reason, they pretend like this economy is working well. All the people, it's working well because the numbers that matter to the capitalists keep going up, because the desperation that the lower classes feel and have to live under is being mined, is being used by the upper classes to benefit from it, because they're the ones that take all the profits. All right, I'm getting on my, this is a soapbox. What the fuck, I'm getting on a bigger one. You should get on your soapbox too, everybody. Hit me up if you want me to help you start a podcast, all right? I've started about 40. All right, here we go.
Is it perfect? No, we don't live in utopia.
Oh, tell me about it.
We
live in a dystopia designed by people like me.
Live in utopia.
Do you support his re-election?
That's a different conversation.
Oh, now he's worried that the Trump might see me say I'm not. That's a different conversation. He's pulling on his what do they call that part of the shirt? The part that chokes your neck when you, for some reason, we have to wear these shirts that are tight and uncomfortable. Although if you have like a nicely fitted jacket, okay.
Let me just say this: that if I was the president, now I've pissed off Warren and Sanders. Now you want me to do the same to the president?
I think it's the natural question, the place to go.
Okay, well, we have a closed ballot system, but I'm a guy that's willing to wear my heart on my sleeve.
More on that later. We're going to see this fella's heart real soon.
Okay, if I was a president, and of course I'm not.
What? Wait a minute. He's not the president? Oh, woo. Oh man, thanks for clarifying that, Leo.
But if I was not prepared to change my dialogue and treatment of people, Mitt Romney is not a jackass. He's a
total lie. Anybody who has a car elevator is a jackass. That's why all those jackass movies were made, because those guys all have car elevators. Johnny Knoxville, Spike Lee Jones.
A distinguished American, okay? Rex Tillerson is not dumb as a rock. He was a very bright guy that ran Exxon.
Rex Tillerson just appears to be dumb as a rock because he doesn't talk. Because rocks don't talk. Except for Dwayne The Rock. He talks a lot.
John McCain was a true war hero. But,
I'm moving on.
He has to become a president for the entire country and not just his base. So if I was him, if I'm not prepared to change my behavior, I would take a victory lap and not run again.
He's looking down. It looks like he's reading. This is the brilliant billionaire class that we all have to live under the subjugation of their diabetic thumbs. Get the fuck out of here. Remember your words. Reading your thing.
The country and western singer Kenny Rogers, his signature song was The Gambler. You got to know when to hold him, you got to know when to fold him. And what I would tell the president is, why are you putting up with all this abuse? Not all of it's not unfair. Some of it is fair. Some of it's unfair. I'm waiting for Walter Cronkite to come back from the grave so I can get my news objectively. I don't need it from CNN. I don't need it from MSNBC.
Not like that fucking liberal Edward R. Murrow. Walter Cronkite. This guy, I mean, look, we all pine for the past, don't we? I miss the days when Tom Brokaw kissed me on the forehead and put me to sleep.
I don't need it from...
I just had for some reason, I just pictured Tom Brokaw working at an animal shelter, kissing all the dogs and cats on the foreheads before injecting them in the neck. Do they do that? Do they just uppercut them with a needle, like up the bottom of the chin? Like, and they slowly watch the life drain from their eyes? I don't know why I decided to include that part in the podcast. It's disturbing. It's traumatizing to work at those. I knew a girl that worked at an animal shelter, and she had stress. It was hard. I mean, she did that because she cared, but they do make a logical choice to kill a bunch of them. I don't know. There's also no kill, but then, okay, my God, what a horrible sidebar.
Fox News. We don't have news services anymore. We have propaganda machines.
Okay, I'll give them that. That's mostly true, but they also serve him. They serve people like him. But,
the stock market's at a record high. The economy is growing. I mentioned a moment ago, 5 million more people at work created in his presidency. We have a record high employment, record low unemployment amongst minorities. I've taken the tough path of opening up trade dialogue with China. Into
something, I promise.
I focused the discussion on illegal immigration. Okay, I reduced government red tape and promoted deregulation. I bolstered our defense, national defense. His deportment is not presidential, and we need a unifier in that position, and because the country is being torn apart.
Yes, we need. If he were Trump, he would unify because the country is being torn apart by Trump. Anyway, it's not the point of this video. Let's just keep.
So let him make his own decision. I am not in favor of all this impeachment inquiry. I want the American people to decide in November of 2020 what the future should be.
I think.
How many people have to listen to their asshole bosses, these kind of guys? It's not just the billionaires. Anybody who's got a position of authority, you have to sit there and shut up when they talk. That's why these guys all ramble on and on, because everybody below them is terrified to say, hey, why don't you shut up, you toupee-wearing idiot? Get a better one bolted to your shitty scalp, you smooth-brained moron. Your jokes aren't funny, boss. That's what I want. I want a world where we can stand up and say, hey, boss. Not a funny joke. Everybody's laughing because you can fire them. I'm disgusted by power is what I'm saying, everybody. Let's keep going. Now, this is where the anchor, Chisel Chin, gets in there and says, I see some emotion. I see a little sleevey heart, a little hearty sleeve going on.
I think it's kind of obvious people can not only...
I'm not watching. His jowls are... what are they? Flexing, undulating, the little fleshy bits by the ear. Walleyes have a similar thing. You can peel out a piece of their cheeks. It's actually really tender meat. And now here we go. We're gonna get into some emotion. So get some Kleenex nearby or a friendly elbow. Tears don't stain. They don't stain.
See the emotion on your face, but hear it in your voice when you talk about this, Lee. Why?
I care. That's it.
Oh, he's putting his face down in his hand.
But in all that you...
All right. He cares. He cares. It's upset. All he did was read a thing about what he would do if he were Trump. Something he probably scribbled out while, Brandy struggled to be processed by his cirrhotic liver. I don't know if that's true. Cirrhotic? That's okay. I am judging and presupposing things. Yes, it's true. All right.
But in all that you have said of where the economy is...
You can see the emotion in his eyes. You can see it. You can see how much this man cares. And by the way, he's a philanthropist. He does philanthropy. He spends upwards of tens of millions of a tiny percentage of his wealth so that he and his kids can get their asses licked by a bunch of other scum-sucking people that that are forced to have to... Well, okay, you know what I mean. We don't need to be groveling to these fucking billionaires in order to have anything remotely decent in our communities. That's what's gross about billionaire philanthropy. It's yet another way for them to ease their conscience or their consciences so they can fall asleep at night, because deep down they know they're the worst of the planet.
Is where
they're the problem. They have money, they have power, and it's not enough for them. So they force you to live a diminished life so that they can have more. The people who don't need anything more and never will. We could take 99% of this guy's wealth. He's 3.3 billion. What's 99? What does that leave him with? $33 million. I think he'd be fine. $33 million is 15 times what an average college graduate earns in an entire lifetime. So if you have a college degree, on average, you're going to make about $2 million. Research from Indiana University 2009 showed it would be 1.8 million. So I'm giving it 2 million for the math because that's easier. 1.8.
Stock market is the wealth that has been created since the president was inaugurated through the stock market appreciation. You still think it would be?
So the stock market is just how the wealthy scoop up the profits that they didn't make. I'm not saying we shouldn't have it. I'm not saying that, that it's wrong to produce wealth. It's wrong for the people who don't do the work to get the wealth. That's the issue. More people should be invested in the stock market. And I don't mean the current state of the stock market. I mean, we should have a whole system designed so that workers and people who do the work have influence over their workplaces, if not ownership, if not cooperative ownership. And then they can have, there's room for some sort of market to incentivize, a more robust stock market that actually serves an economy designed around elevating everybody and maintaining a floor below which no one's allowed to go. We have enough resources to do that. We have enough ingenuity to do that. We have enough. Those are the two things. We just don't have the moral character or the willpower or the political power because it's all hoarded and concentrated in these people and the politicians who suck up to them.
A better idea if he did not run for re-election at this particular time?
Well, I think I said, you're looking to get me into trouble. What I said was...
All right. Now, they just talk about fucking Trump. I don't know what the rest of it is about. I got more shit to do here. So who is this guy? Let's learn about this fucking guy. Here he is. Leon G. Cooperman was born in 1943, an American billionaire, investor, and hedge fund manager and philanthropist. He is the chairman and CEO of Omega Advisors. Nothing more alpha than calling yourself Omega, am I right? A New York-based investment advisory firm managing over $3.3 billion in assets under management, the majority consisting of his personal wealth. Okay, so he manages $3.3 billion, but the majority is his. So the exact billionaire number, 3 billion, 3.2. It's his thing. Also, hedge fund managers pay like 15% taxes. Some kind of law. I think this was now I don't know the history of it all, but. Hedge fund managers have a specific carve-out in the tax law that allows them to, I think that's right, they don't have to pay capital gains taxes. They're exempt from capital gains, which is a higher number. So their tax rate is like 14, 15%. People that have just shit tons of money, and that just accelerates over time because they can reinvest all that money. They just constantly grow and grow and grow and grow. It's like we have a pro-cancer policy when it comes to the wealthy, especially the hedge fund managers. Back to the Wikipedia. On September 21st, 2016, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission charged Cooperman and Omega Advisors with insider trading, more specifically for trading stocks, bonds, and call options of Atlas Pipeline Partners in July 2010 on information he obtained from an executive at the company. It's shocking that anyone gets caught for that. That's got to be happening all the time. Cooperman has denied these charges, saying they were, quote unquote, totally without merit. And his attorney has argued that, quote unquote, no court has upheld a misappropriation theory of insider trading based on a purported promise to keep information confidential or to refrain from trading, made after the information was acquired. All right, whatever. Cooperman, through his Omega charitable partnership, along with anti-something or other, owns American Media, Inc., publishers of the National Enquirer. That's why he's so afraid of upsetting Donald Trump since August of 2014. That's who this guy is. A real catch. A real good guy. So Elizabeth Warren, who is the reason he's on the air here, and Bernie Sanders, he's afraid of their wealth tax. He feels like it's just so hard. I don't think people understand how difficult it is having absolutely no worries whatsoever. But he does have worries because he's a human being. Right? So this system doesn't work for these people either. that's why it's okay to chop them down to 1 or 2% of their current wealth, because they would still just be just as happy or unhappy. Because this is all about status. This is all about how he pisses and compares his little dick to other little dicks. It's all this whole thing within the upper managerial class, where, and I think everybody's somewhat prone to this. We look at our surroundings, we see our peer group, and there's been research showing that human beings naturally look up in order to assess their status. Meaning, instead of seeing a good example is like the car someone drives. If you live on a street where everybody's house is about the same and everybody's economic status is roughly equal, well, when you look down the street, you don't say my 2015 Toyota Corolla is better than that 2013 Toyota Corolla. What you do is you say, I only have a 2015 Toyota Corolla, but that guy has a 2017 Toyota Corolla. Man, my wife is 5'7", and that guy's wife is 5'7.5". I don't think height really, but that guy's wife is 400 feet tall. He's dating the Iron Giant. I mean, he married the Iron Giant. So status is a natural human thing. It's status anxiety, status assessment. This is something we all kind of do instinctively. And the billionaires do that. So that when they're sitting on their private plane that's worth $55 million, they're looking over going, through the nice window that doesn't have someone else's forehead grease on it. Or if it does, it has their own. And they're saying, man, look at that plane over there. That's $70 million. I read about that in my fancy plane magazine on my recently released iPad. I'm being disenfranchised because I don't have the $70 million plane. Jeff Bezos buys a bigger, there's an arms race. There's a tiny dick race for this thing. Why does Betsy DeVos need 10 yachts? Because she used to only have 9 and other people had 10. It's disgusting. There's a limit to this. There's an upper limit to this. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be motivated to want to get the 2017 Toyota Corolla, Not that should be the primary motivation for anything, material acquisition or consumption. Anyway, he's worried about his wealth and it hurts. So Elizabeth Warren is a threat to him, even though his life wouldn't change one bit. 2% up to, so over $1 billion, it becomes 6%, I believe is how her plan is structured. So she blasts Navient. This is a headline from, God, I should have screened out the top of that one too. Hold on, I have it written down. CNBC. Elizabeth Warren blasts Navient student loan servicer where billionaire Leon Cooperman is a stakeholder. Now, I did read in Huffington Post, I don't have a screenshot of it, but it's that he owns, this was 2015, and that he had 2% of Navient, which is a big amount. 2% of a company is large when you're just buying up stocks for it. You didn't create it. You weren't part of the foundation of it. And it goes into these big portfolios, and these numbers churn and change around as they move their money into different things. That's the work of investing, is like deciding, that guy over there who I pay $200,000 tells me that Navient might be good. We got to make a change. Well, that's the work of investing. They're not shoveling anything. They're not creating anything. They're just making decisions based on data crunching. Not that you don't get tired. I'm sure they get tired after a long day of looking at spreadsheets. I mean, fuck, man, I'm a video editor. I get tired. I'm tired before I wake up. You know what I mean? So what is Navient? Right? I was curious. I wanted to learn a little about it. It's a student loan servicing company. America has this massive student loan issue. I've got some audio from AOC and Bernie talking about Bernie's plan to forgive all the debt. But Warren's plan, as you know, will only forgive up to $50,000, which would be wonderful. A lot of people have less than that, and that would mean all of it. But there's also means there's a testing and approving, and it creates a bureaucratic kind of, well, what level are you at? I mean, you have to prove it, all this stuff. Bernie's is simpler, more straightforward, more humane, more expensive, quote unquote. Although I could make a case that the sudden liberation of millions of young people stepping into the world, trying to do something with their lives, trying to take their education and put it to good use, would be enormous. The amount of economic activity, since that's the only thing that matters in this capitalist nightmare world that we live in, would be huge. They'd actually be able to build their own wealth, possibly buy property, the dream of all good Americans. They wouldn't have the stress relief alone. I mean, all these articles about how millennials are killing various things. The power lunch was one of the recent ones. Guess what? We could have power lunch again. Millennials could get back to buying diamonds instead of carving wedding rings from the bones of their victims. So what is Navient? They do student loan stuff. They help administer bank financing. So they cheat students, but they got in trouble for shady practices that they've been investigated for. So this is an article from from Washington Post. Yes, I was under the 4 articles a month limit. Not bragging there, ladies. The debate centers on an internal memo written in 2010 by Matt Baylor, a senior director at Sallie Mae, Navient's former parent company, detailing strategies for servicing federal student loans. At one point in the memo, Baylor says, our battle cry remains, forbear them, make them relinquish the ball. Said another way, we are very liberal in our use of forbearance once it has been determined that a borrower cannot pay cash or utilize other entitlement programs. What's forbearance? We're going to learn real soon here, all right? Among the most serious allegations in the complaint is that Navient encouraged borrowers to postpone payments through forbearance, an option in which interest continues to accrue rather than enroll them in an income-driven repayment plan that would avoid fees. So their internal company guy, Baylor, was saying, let's do the one that makes us more money, that screws them over more. They can't pay, but we can still rack up interest fees. We can still just carve deeper. Let's not just twist the knife a little. Let's keep twisting the knife a lot. Let's lock these people in forever. And eventually they'll get to the point where they give up and we sell it off to collection agencies, and then the whole nother round of nightmare begins. There's numerous phases to this fucking thing. It's so restricting. You have student loan payments. We're also all trained to protect our goddamn credit score. Mine is terrible, by the way. There's a big complicated story there, but and that's one of the ways they tie a yoke around your neck so that you fall in line. Hey, you got this credit score. You don't want to get these threatening letters. You don't want to get these monthly bills. You don't want to have to deal with this stuff. Well, better pay up, bitch. So you stay at jobs you don't like, or you're limited in what you're allowed to do. You're limited in the kind of travel you can maybe do. You make compromises in your life. You live with the stress. The Consumer Bureau said the practice cost borrowers up to $4 billion in interest from January 2010 to March 2015, a claim Navient disputes. No, we didn't. Reading more from the article, the evidence unsealed in federal court confirms that Navient's practices that added billions of dollars of debt to struggling borrowers emanated from the top echelon of the company, said Seth Frotman, executive director of the Student Borrower Protection Center and Advocacy Group. The time has come for policymakers to admit this company's practices are predatory and corrupt. It should not be given a single additional taxpayer dollar. That's the other thing that's sort of nefarious about these things, is that they are in league with the government. Because more and more, and this is how capitalism works, it captures governments. It runs it. It's almost analogous to like how the Catholic Church or just the Church of England, like the big Protestant domination, the various back and forth between those two, if that's even accurate, I hope it is historically, how religion and government used to be intertwined in a way. And now capitalism and government are similarly intertwined. One reason Christmas is such a disgusting holiday, if you look at it through an anti-capitalist lens, which is impossible not to. We all spend all this money just to what? Buy shit so that the children in our families can just not even know who gave it to them, first of all, but also just throw it away or use it for a couple weeks, maybe. Especially electronics. Buy them something with a screen that's just going to rot their brains. I'm so glad I was born before screens were just forced in front of children's faces. I had my brain ruined by TV and VCRs and having to rewind stuff and get late fees at the Blockbuster. Or the Video Snidio. Yes, I grew up in an area where we had Video Snidios. Now that's a great rhyming. But children, anyway, so Christmas is capitalism religiousified. It's ostensibly a religious holiday. It's obviously not, unless you look at it as a religion, the consumerism that's forced on us. And business cycles depend on it. Advertisers spend most of their money in Q4. That stands for quarter four. If you don't have a job, if you work somewhere, you just start talking like you're what's going to happen in Q3, FO 42997. Like, how are we not all acronyms? So Christmas is just, advertisers spend a whole bunch of money to try to sell you stuff. Manufacturers expect to sell a whole bunch of stuff during this time, so they ramp up their production during the year, which just accelerates the extraction of resources from the land and the earth instead of using it intelligently to build a sustainable world. So we all have to go through Christmas, the stress of that. Not like the good part of a holiday, and I'm not against the notion that you have a ritual where your family gets together and you give each other hugs and you check in and you argue about whether it's okay to torture children, which for some reason 40% of our families think that's okay. All the ways that we're all divided by politics these days. Like, the good parts of Christmas are food, family, folks, fun, seeing a movie. I like going to a movie on Christmas. It's a nice little treat. Got a day off of work. Might as well go watch Keanu Reeves murder 95 dudes with thick eyebrows for fun. John Wick 3 sucked, by the way. It was terrible. It was just a long, violent music video. But it's all in the service of our national religion, which is capitalism, which we're all forced to practice. And it's dehumanizing. It incentivizes cruelty. It makes ignoring human being needs, emotional needs, physical needs, mental health needs, instinctual needs. It makes those obstacles to overcome instead of what we really should be prioritizing, those things. That should be the purpose of an economy. The work that you do, the effort you put into working, to training yourself into some skill, to developing some kind of skill set, should go to building a better life for you and those around you and your children and your the old people too. All right, so I'm losing my thread here. So back to 2015. This is an article from Huffington Post. Why this billionaire is betting on troubled student loan giant Navient. So this a-hole Cooperman, alleged a-hole, is real upset because he cares. He has such a big heart. He just wants the world to not feel so much hurt. There's too much hurt in the world. He invested in this company, this Navient, this parasite, this Dementor. Harry Potter, what? And this headline here from Huffington Post, 2015, why this billionaire is betting on troubled student loan giant Navient. It's the first paragraph. To some federal and state regulators, student loan giant Navient Corp is a company that too often mistreats borrowers and deprives them of their right to make affordable monthly payments. To Leon Cooperman, a shareholder and billionaire investor, Navient is an undervalued company that the government is beating up on for no good reason. So he's already got more wealth than he could ever spend in his entire life. And he's looking for more. This is 2015. He's quoted as saying, "The problem is the regulators, not the company." Why are they so mean to me? And people, I like this phrase, it deprives them of their right to make affordable monthly payments. That should be in the Constitution. If anything, we do ever update the Constitution, it'll be like, you have a right to be predictable sources of income for your oppressors. Constitutional Amendment number 28. So there's a paragraph from this article that kind of illustrates some of the issues with student debt. The number has grown larger. It's now 1.6, but the number here is 1.3. So student debt has emerged as a dominant policy issue, with both Democratic and Republican politicians jostling over ways to lower college costs and make student loans more affordable. More than 40 million Americans collectively owe about $1.3 trillion on their student loans, a product of increased college enrollment, reduced higher education spending by state legislatures, and runaway tuition hikes. Washington policymakers have warned that overly indebted households may have no choice but to cut back on spending and investments, depressing the economy's growth. Couple things here. Reduced higher education spending by state legislatures. That's from the fetishization of tax cuts, of this obsession very successfully implemented from like Grover Norquist and the anti-tax extremists that has been this thinking has permeated all throughout society. No one likes paying taxes, and they've demonized the whole concept. I don't like paying taxes willy-nilly, and I hate that a big chunk of my tax money goes to military spending, to serving corporate global raiders that are just looting the planet of its labor and its resources, into propping up terrible societies, oppressive regimes like Saudi Arabia and Israel. By the way, Gaza Fights for Freedom. Check that out, man. Abby Martin's a great movie. I'm going to talk more about that in another episode coming up here pretty soon. But states, I mean, this is the starve the beast argument pushed by Grover Norquist, this anti-tax extremist, where the whole idea was, he's famously quoted saying something like he wants to shrink government down to the size where you can drown it in a bathtub. The obvious implication being that government's in the way and we need to kill it. But that's not what they do. They don't reduce government. They just manipulate it because it's powerful and use it for their own enrichment. But they cut spending. They cut education spending by it helped along by demonizing taxes. So people are okay. Well, hey, don't raise my taxes, and meanwhile we're cutting all this education. Meanwhile, we're forcing students to have to take out loans in order to do this stuff. Therefore, and then they become even more beholden to the system. It's this interconnected network of grift that takes advantage of people throughout all the phases of their life. Which is why I'm for Bernie's plan. 1.6 trillion is the amount that he's offering to reduce. Not that it'll be that easy to pass that. I mean, most of these issues are going to be, all of them will be incredibly resisted. And we're going to need an organized movement to pass them. And that means Bernie will show up. He will go to different states and shame and demand politicians in those states vote the way that the mass movement wants. Not just him alone. There will be millions of people who are with him. And that's the real power in America, when people actually show up. When you go to Costco and you buy some poster boards and some markers and you write something on there. I went to the Science March and I made a sign that said, I thought this was a seance march. What an asshole. And that's how you get these big concepts, these big policies passed. Because the idea of just making someone's life better using policy is very weird to Americans. You're supposed to offer up that pound of flesh. And not just that, but they want you to grow it back through hard work. This manipulative thing that we've all been trained. Hard work. Hard work is the most important virtue. Yeah, if you're benefiting from it, but you're doing it for them. You're doing it so your boss can buy another house. They know how hard it is. I mean, they know how much value you have. They spend it all the time. Where's your we all have this thing called work ethic. Where's your profit ethic? Fucking bosses, where you just suck it up, or and then you feed it into the investors, into the shareholder price, the quote unquote stakeholders. Treat employees like they're just dispensable, encumbrances that you try to minimize how much you pay them, minimize how much of their value they get to keep. That's what's disgusting about capitalism. All right, I'm running out of time here. I got to get going. I'm late for work already. Fuck. AOC, this is her and Bernie in the summer here, where she's talking about Bernie's plan to forgive student loans.
What we tell 17-year-olds all the time is that you are not old enough or responsible enough to drink. You are not old enough or responsible enough to vote. You are not old enough or responsible enough to serve in our military, but you are old enough and responsible enough to take on $250,000 worth of debt. And that is wrong. It is not right.
Hell yeah, I agree.
Not only is that what we are telling children now, minors now, but that's what we have told them for decades. And it has resulted in a crisis that we have seen today.
All right. There's more. She's always great. I totally think she's got an immense future. I've talked about this all the time. I'm so happy that she's in this world, and what a wonderful thing to see her. Bernie and her working together so closely. So she's got a lot more to say there. But Bernie here, he's talking about this is the same event, I believe, where they're just talking about stuff. Let's hear what the old fighter has to say.
In the wealthiest country in the history of the world, it is simply not acceptable that our younger generation, through no fault of their own, will have a lower standard of living than their parents, more debt, lower wages, and less likelihood of owning their own homes.
Also, Sonic the Hedgehog's teeth were really creepy. I mean, Jesus. Redesigning that character model is the right thing to do.
That is why this proposal completely eliminates student debt in this country and ends the absurdity of sentencing an entire generation, the millennial generation, to a lifetime of debt for the crime of doing the right thing.
That's right. The crime of participating in the system they were told to participate in. Get a college degree. That's how you get a job. These jobs are very competitive if you don't have a good degree. So we stress kids ridiculously about their futures. Maybe we have a college where they don't have to pay a single fucking thing, other than beer money and bail money. Man, beer and bail should be the only fucking college expense. Actually, that approach probably would work. That'd be pretty persuasive. But what would be so horrible about the idea that you get to go to college and sit around? Not that it's just that, but you educate without the stress of how you pay for it, without the stress of a second, third, or first, second, third job, without the stress of what happens next. This is a developmental stage for human beings. Like the whole thing. Maybe, they get out there, they get college, they get away from their hometowns, you start to meet new people. Like one of the best things about college is the exposure to different ideas and concepts and learning how to think, especially. I was very fortunate though. I had an older relative who had money, and I had a college fund from them. So I used it all up going to a state school and spent about $45,000 for a 4.5-year education. So I didn't have debt, and I didn't have to worry about paying for stuff. I was extremely lucky. My childhood was strange, though. I didn't grow up rich. We were on food stamps for a time. There was a lot of mental illness, but I had some wealth in my family, and that's a massive privilege and a massive advantage. I didn't make the most of college. I was fat and depressed and out of my, just dealing with. I started to go bald my sophomore year. Man, that was okay. But money-wise, my stress was way down. Although I only had enough for 4.5 years. And that was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I graduated in 2001 when a state school was only about $4,500 a semester, which seemed like a lot of money at the time. But these days, I've seen numbers and I can't. But it's way higher than that. It's insane. Which is driven by this student loan thing, this feedback loop of, you can get the loans, therefore we're going to raise the prices. Well, they're getting loans, raise the prices. They're getting loans, raise the prices. There's no funding. We got to make it up somehow. Scumbag billionaires need to buy yacht number 8. And we can't possibly tax them and reclaim the money that they stole and use that money for the society that allows them to live a life of incredible luxury. All right, Bernie's got some more to say here. Let's skip ahead to another marker I wrote.
In the 1960s and 1970s, the federal government and state governments invested heavily in higher education, with the result that college tuition was virtually free for millions of young people.
Beer and bail money, man. Beer and bail money. And condoms. Although condoms should be just everywhere in college. They should tape those things to the walls. There should be dispensers and everything. I didn't have sex in college. I was sorting through my dumb brain, my stupid business degree. The things I would do differently. which would, one of those things would be I would have sex in college. It's depressing. But college should be about banging, right? Safely, consensually. Get the herp checked out. You know, go into the shop and have look at the undercarriage and no blisters. All right, back out for another week in the orgasm pits. All right, let's keep going. This is like the most inappropriate in the middle of Bernie Sanders. Okay, here we go.
40 years ago, a federal Pell Grant paid for nearly 80% of tuition, fees, room and board at a 4-year college. Well, unfortunately, things have changed over the years and changed in a bad way. Today, it will cost over $21,000 each and every year.
Damn!
To attend some of these very same schools, which 50 years ago were virtually free. Today, Pell Grants cover only 30% of college expenses.
If you can get one.
And here are the results of federal and state higher education cutbacks.
Bring us home, Daddy.
Today, the average college senior graduates with about $30,000 in student debt, and 1 out of 6 seniors will graduate with over $50,000 in debt.
Man, 1 out of 6. That's a lot. Not to mention the people that don't finish college because of the first couple years or the first semester, they just get a big chunk of debt, and college isn't for everybody. We could have a much more comprehensive, wide-ranging trade school system, something that's built, and we should stop shaming that type of work either. As well, I mean, the whole notion that the only way to succeed in society is to, you know, join these lucrative industries of doctoring. Well, not that there's a problem with being a doctor, but like lawyering, doctoring, finance. What am I, rich? Finance. These things, you know, you just participate in the capitalist system or follow your heart and be broke. Follow your heart. Do social work. Be a teacher. Be a nurse. Do something helping people. Work in a nursing home. Or maybe you just are going to be, you know, a janitor or something. Not that that's anybody's ambition, but if you are, you should have a decent life and not have stress. We have the resources. The money's there. The work is there. And the money comes from the work. That's the whole fucking point. The inherent human value of that labor belongs to everybody. Bernie gets it, and so should you. Vote 2020, all right? Oh, yeah, big election last night, right? That was a big deal. The Bevins guy there in Kentucky beating the governor, although the Republicans aren't going to concede the governorship there because they're a bunch of scumbags. And they're going to fucking make it super difficult to, you know, any close. I mean, they will not hesitate to do dirty tricks. It's gross. Also, Lee Carter, Democratic Socialist, re-elected in Virginia, as well as Virginia turning blue, baby. Beer bale, babes in blue, man. Babes is a unigender term. Is unigender a word? I don't know. Yeah, Virginia, both houses, you know, the House of Delegates. Now it's all Democrats are fully in control of the state of Virginia, which is wonderful because they can stop the, you know, horrible policies that the Republican people were doing. Good times. All right, a little bit more on Navient. I actually haven't watched this full clip, but we're going to check it out. This is Perfect Union All-Star Katie Porter showing up here, and she's chewing out some piece of shit in Congress. Let's give it a watch.
Yeah. Would you agree that you expect your lawyers to follow all laws, regulations, and individual rules and policies, and you expect your lawyers to follow the laws?
Well, I don't have any lawyers myself.
There's a guy named Mr. Buchanan.
But if you mean sort of the legal departments of servicers, I think that's the expectation. We do comply with the federal law that's applicable here.
Okay.
Well, we wrote the rules, so we comply with the laws that make it okay to be corrupt. We just turned corruption legal. That's the dumb thing criminals don't do, is if you're going to rob a bank, just fucking donate to a politician and they'll let you shoot everyone in the bank and take their money. Not quite literally like that, but corruption is gross.
Would you agree that servicers have been accused, including by some of the other witnesses, of intentionally assessing inappropriate fees and costs to borrowers?
I believe there have been assertions. I mean, I don't think they've asserted fees.
Is it your, would you agree that those allegations are not true?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Would you agree that those allegations are simply not true?
I don't believe the facts are consistent with those allegations as best I've seen. But again, I'm not privy to the litigation here, so there may be facts I'm unaware of, but all evidence and all performance metrics from a servicer perspective to the contrary.
Mr. Buchanan,
Well, from our perspective, everything's fine. We all go on great vacations. I went to Sandals twice last year. Top floor, too. Top floor. At the student loan conference. And then I Googled hedonism, but my wife, she's not into the three, this guy's got some dark history. All right, let's keep
running out of time.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time.
With apologies to Brandi Carlile, my favorite artist. I have been to this movie and I've seen how it ends, and the joke is on them.
Got him. Don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
The American people. The statements that I just read to you are all from the testimony of Countrywide during the mortgage crisis. When I sat where these folks sit as a witness and listened to the witness from Countrywide say that the media reports.
Countrywide is a financial services loan company. That's a big, I don't know if bank is the right word, but they're a huge player in this world.
Are inaccurate, that they expect their lawyers to.
Sorry, rewind. Wow, she's possessed. Okay, here we go.
That the media reports are inaccurate, that they expect their lawyers to follow the law, that there have not been an intentional assessment of inappropriate fees and costs. So I already have Netflix. I don't need another crappy reboot.
Oh, damn.
These are the exact same arguments that we've heard before. You sound just like Mr. Mozillo, and you're doing the same exact kind of harm to our economy.
Nice. So that's what you get when the regulators aren't pieces of shit, scumbags, who are bought. That's why we got to get this money, this donation, this money in politics out. It's got to be ended. Shorten elections to like 8 weeks. Canada's or England's election, they're like, oh, we must have an election. Labour, the Tories, Boris Johnson, and suddenly they're like, 6 weeks. 6 weeks from now, we'll have a fucking election. We have a fucking election. Sexy Beast, guys, great movie, great way to work on your accents. Students have to jump through all these hoops. Look at all this crap on this one site here. This crazy student loan refinancing stuff. This could all be wiped out. It's all just gone. Just this stuff here. All these different companies. Like, this is what it's like shopping for health insurance too, which is another fucking nightmare. So we're just all just forced into these systems that don't serve us. They tell you it does. Hey, you want to go to college? You got to get a loan. Hey, you got too many loans. Well, why don't you refinance? Come on over here. We'll scam you slightly less. But you're still in it. You're still rowing at the bottom of a Viking ship. You're not up top wearing the cool helmets. You're down below wearing the loincloth, knocking elbows with some other piece of shit next to you. I don't know why they're pieces of shit down there. Piece of victim. It's not working for you. That's what capitalism is, just a pirate ship where you're not calling the shots. You can't escape it. You're down in the dregs shoveling coal. They don't even burn the coal. They just force you to shovel it because they haven't invented the coal-fired Titanic engines yet. But you're down there eating your daily allotment of limes to help your knees go back together because of scurvy. I just got that in the Simpsons. That's where I got my medical information. You're down there suffering. You're not calling. You don't have any influence about where the ship goes. The ships just run around trying to fight each other, absorbing one another, building bigger pirate ships, looting, landing some island, murdering all the natives, burying the loot, hoarding it. They give you enough to keep you alive. But occasionally, the workers in the pirate ship say, you know what? I like this little island here where the girls have their shirts off, and we're going to bang them. I mean, like, consensually. Although I'm not sure I'm doing the Mutiny now. That's a Mel Gibson movie. Anthony Hopkins too. It's like such a fucking nut. So let's jump ahead. All right, that's enough about the Navient stuff. I had a bunch of stuff prepared here. I want to just play this real quick. The rest we're nearing the end here. There's not a lot more to get through. Back to AOC, Perfect Union All-Star. She went on Chris Cuomo, and this is the way you're supposed to respond when people ask, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, first of all, the thing that we need to realize is people talk about the sticker shock of Medicare for all. They do not talk about the sticker shock of the cost of our existing system. In a Koch brothers funded study, if any study is going to try to be a little bit slanted, it would be one funded by the Koch brothers. It shows that Medicare for all is actually much cheaper than the current system that we pay right now. And let's not forget that the reason that the Supreme Court upheld the Affordable Care Act is because they ruled that each of these monthly payments that everyday Americans make is a tax. And so while it may not seem like we pay that tax on April 15th, we pay it every single month, or we do pay a tax season if we don't buy, these plans off of the exchange.
Or you pay it with co-pays, or you pay it when you have to fill up your deductible before you can get health care. I have a fucking wrist problem. I'm going to finally get health care at my job, and I'm going to have a really low deductible of, I think it's $200. I have to. This is a totally separate kind of, but that's a very, very low, because any other healthcare I had access to would have been like $5,000 something, $3,000 or $4,000 you spend before you get a single dime from the insurance companies. I'm not going to use my healthcare for my wrists. I'd love to get some rehab. It's been going on since April. It's very inhibiting. It's horrible. Got up doing a construction project, and I'm waiting till January, so that I only have to pay the deductible once. If I pay the deductible, if I go now, it's November, that'll be the $200. And then in January, I'll have to pay another $200. So I'm waiting, because it's logical, to suffer a little longer until January, so that $200 I'd spend in January works for the entire year's cycle. And $200 is not that much. I just drained my savings to buy this processor. I took all my money out of it, which was just a few $100. I'm broke as shit. But the point being, it is a tax. That's what she's saying. That's okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be interjecting. I just want to play this.
So we're paying for this system. We Americans have the sticker shock of healthcare as it is. And what we're also not talking about is, why aren't we incorporating the cost of all the funeral expenses of those who die because they can't afford access to healthcare? That is part of the cost of our system. Why don't we talk about the cost of reduced productivity because of people who need to go on disability, because of people who are not able to participate in our economy, because they're having issues like diabetes, or they don't have access to the healthcare that they need. I think at the end of the day, we see that this is not a pipe dream. Every other developed nation in the world does this. Why can't America? And that is the question that we need to ask. We have done these things before. We write unlimited blank checks for war. We just wrote a $2 trillion check for that tax cut, the GOP tax cut, and nobody asked those folks, how are they going to pay for it? So my question is, why is it that our pockets are only empty when it comes to education and healthcare for our kids? Why are our pockets only empty when we talk about 100% renewable energy that is going to save this planet and allow our children to thrive? We only have empty pockets when it comes to the morally right things to do. But when it comes to tax cuts for billionaires and when it comes to unlimited war, we seem to be able to invent that money very easily. And to me, it belies a lack of moral priorities that people have right now, especially the Republican Party.
Boom. Oh, it feels good to hear someone talk like that on TV. Man, she's right. Nothing but endless money for these wars. I got some information about the cost of war. I just wanted to mention the thing, and I think this needs to be talked about more, is the stress reduction of Medicare for all. I don't think Americans can imagine it. I think our self-worth is so degraded by the way we're treated throughout our entire lives by this system that it doesn't even occur to us to think about the stress reduction of knowing that your society has your back. There's an evolutionary underpinning to that. Like, I always think of just being in the woods alone. If you're in the woods by yourself, unless you just want to be, there's plenty of weirdos that wander. I know, I'll go to the woods sometimes, look for boxes of porn. Hey, here's a box. It's like, what is this, Minecraft for weirdos? The woods is a scary place. But if you have a friend, not so scary. If you have a group, it's even less scary. You have a group, you can make a clearing, build a little A-frame hut. Somebody turns a leaf into a bowl. Teaches everybody else how to make a leaf bowl. Now you have a society. Then you can invent religion, and eventually, several thousand years later, some guy will yell about it on a podcast. Point is, we belong in groups. We belong, and there's a security that comes from knowing you have a group that cares about you. That's what dignity is. Dignity means your pain matters to the people around you. That's why it's very undignified to be an American. Because your pain is a resource for them to mine, and when you become too expensive, you're disposable. Just go fucking die. People in poverty, people in the lower ends, they don't live as long. And you develop unhealthy responses. And people deal with things in different ways. Human beings are a very diversified animal. But not all coping skills are the same. And that's what drives addiction. That's what drives the cycles of abuse that continue on and on. I would even make a case it feeds into the perpetuation of racism and sexism. Because then you're susceptible to manipulation by a personality like Trump, by the Republican Party, that will tell you what you want to hear and completely govern in the interests of that toupee-wearing scumbag Leon Cooperman. And yes, toupees, you got to go. You're an idiot. You look stupid. We can all tell. You're not tricking anybody. Like I said, I went fucking bald at 19, okay? So I am the authority on baldness. Actually, I Googled it for the first time a few years ago. Turns out it's the shrinking of the follicles. What the fuck? So she's completely right. And the stress, I mean, just preventative care, like, they argue that we don't have enough money to spend less money. How are you going to pay for everybody being healthy? How could you possibly afford a society where people can get treatment before it gets more expensive? Oh, we don't have enough water to put out that small fire. Let's wait till it becomes a big fire, and then we'll come up with some money. But just the stress alone, man, just knowing that when you get sick, you can go to the doctor. Maybe I could have gone to the doctor for my wrist in April. After a few weeks, I would have waited it out. It's not like debilitating. I'm wearing a wrist brace. The embarrassment's the worst part. I don't want to be the wrist brace guy. I did it doing something cool too, man. I was building a tortoise enclosure. I built an 8-foot coffin for tortoises with like little mesh windows, 2 lids. They had a little house. I even made it an insert, like they could change out the height of their door because we weren't sure how high, how much. It was awesome. It was a fun little project. It actually took a whole bunch of fucking work. I didn't have a workbench. So, yeah, I'm sensitive about that because I'm an insecure baby. But I want to be out in the world, and I want to tell, women mainly, hey, this isn't it's not just because I played too much Red Dead Redemption 2, although I am planning on playing too much Red Dead Redemption 2 as soon as I can. Now that's on PC. This is from building a turtle enclosure, man. Woman, come on. It's a hunky injury. What the fuck was I talking about? I could have had this thing treated, maybe some rehab right away, or some professionals. They could have scanned it and looked in there and said, "All right, here, do this." All right, maybe there's a break in there. I have things growing on my nose, under the skin. These dark spots. There's 3 of them. They're getting slowly bigger. I'm pretty sure it's some kind of thing that needs to be biopsied. My dad and my uncle have both had things cut off their faces similarly. I have no access to that until next year when I pay the deductible. It looks like shit right now, but what if it starts growing? I look like my friends pranked me, but they ran out of ink. Like they barely had enough just to make a couple small dots on my nose. But I have dots on my nose. I don't want dots on my nose. One of them's pretty visible. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Hank. The dots on my nose. Those are called my American spots. Those are called my capitalism moles. They're not on the outside. They're like under the skin. Maybe I could get one of those remover things. You ever take one of those nose? You ever put one of those nose strip things on your face? My stepmom gave me one. It was kind of exciting. You put it on there and it hardens, and then you peel it off. It hurts, like kind of a good hurt, like that skin. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like not all pain. It's terrible, but like you're like ooh, you're pulling it out, and then you pull it out, And it's like you've created a cave system. It's like you've torn off the roof of a cave, and there's all these like stalagmites, or tights, whichever one go, these little pokey things that are all the crud and the oils that have built up in your pores, and your nose feels tingly or kind of vibrant somehow. And you look at it and it's disgusting. And you're like, wow, all that shit in there, just what the fuck? So maybe that would work to get the cancer off my face. But no, I'll wait till it gets bad. Then I'll go to the emergency room, take an Uber because the ambulance will be too expensive, and then I'll be told to go fuck myself. I'll die. My family will inherit my debt. Sorry, face cancer boy. You weren't born rich? Get the fuck out of here. All right, so what did the war in Iraq cost us? This is from, I wrote it down, PolitiFact. The Congressional Research Service estimated in 2014 that the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, mainly the cost of operations, had cost the United States about $1.6 trillion from 2001 to 2014. $686 billion for Operation Enduring Freedom, great name. $815 billion for Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Nude On. Nude. Okay, yeah. $27 billion for Operation Noble Eagle. These propaganda stuff. Enhancing security at military bases. $81 billion for programs and activities not directly related to war operations. But those figures only include direct expenditures. More comprehensive analysis show trillions of dollars in additional spending. A recent Brown University study, for example, pinned the cost of the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Syria at about $3.6 trillion from 2001 to 2016, using the $1.6 trillion operations cost as a baseline, but also accounting for counterterrorism costs. So there's an extra $2 trillion. And there's a lot of companies making a lot of money off of that. And there's a lot of people who invest in those companies, the ones that are publicly traded. I'm not sure what the breakdown is, but a lot of them are privately owned. A lot of these defense contractors, it's this massive boondoggle. A lot of people make money off those stock prices going up. And what are they doing to earn that money? Just parking money into a thing. The only skill they had was they already had money. Continuing, adding in money appropriated for war spending and on Homeland Security in 2017, the total reaches $4.79 trillion. This figure also includes future obligations for veterans, medical, and disability costs, $1 trillion through 2053, as well as interest on borrowing for wars. So we're borrowing money, putting it on the credit card. This is a Democratic and a Republican initiative, although I would put but a majority of the blame on the Republicans, on these war hawks, on the Dick Cheneys, the George Bushes, the Ellen DeGeneres. That whole thing was ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying that the response, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad that someone who says, oh, we got to be kind to all the warmongers, we're kind to everybody.
Here's the thing. I'm friends with George Bush. In fact, I'm friends with a lot of people who don't share the same beliefs that I have. When I say be kind to one another, I don't mean only the people that think the same way that you do. I mean be kind to everyone. Doesn't matter.
When I say be kind to everybody, I mean everybody. Ellen's bullshit response to that fucking thing. No, Ellen, it's okay to shame people who are responsible for the death of okay, this is all stuff that happened several thousand years ago, it feels like. And the veteran costs, the medical disability, that also would be covered under Medicare for All. I don't think the Medicare for All system eliminates the VA, the Veterans Administration, the VA hospitals. I assume a Bernie Sanders administration would greatly, and a Warren one too, would greatly expand and strengthen that system. Veterans deserve benefits. They have unique injuries and particularly psychological injuries, which are a lot more prevalent than more and more as time goes on, and we unshackle ourselves from the stigmas, the idiotic notions of the past, the bootstrap pulling fetishists that have just taught us all to just rub some dirt on it. Meanwhile, 22 to 23 veterans are killing themselves every single day. We're already over an hour into this podcast. And within this hour that you're listening to this, somebody who went to defend his country or her country killed themselves. They end up homeless. America does not give a fuck about the veterans. They speak. That's why that's like the militarization of the NFL when they fly planes over and roo roo rah rah. Look at the brave boys. They're down there in the corner by the end zone holding the flags. Let's all honor the military. Put your hand over your heart. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. Take off your hat. Meanwhile, somewhere on the streets, a veteran is dying from an overdose. There's nobody to help them. The last thing going through their brain, well, I can't say, I don't know, but they should die of old age and diabetes like the rest of us, or car crashes, or smoking, or mass shootings at a movie theater. So this country doesn't give a shit about these people. That's what frustrates me about the Democrats and Republicans, the way the right wing somehow owns protecting veterans. They own that thing, that notion that they care. You're the ones sending them to war and then taking away or never even providing for their safety and their health afterwards. Just so people like Betsy DeVos, Steve Mnuchin, these gargoyles that work for the government, these scumbags, so they can all just make a couple extra bucks, not have to spend it, not have to spend the money they stole from the workers, from the society that produced it. I mean, give me a fucking break. Here's more to this. Here's a chart. Summary cost war in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, and Homeland Security. This plus, let's just skip down to the bottom here. I do have a visual on the YouTube version of this. But plus additional cumulative interest on past appropriations, fiscal year 2001 to 2013 by 2053, upwards of $7.9 trillion. Although I would imagine there's a lot more to that. Not to mention the cost of, destabilizing the Middle East, all the way these geopolitical shenanigans go on all over the world, where we have to fund this military exercise, and different global partners and players and interests are all positioning themselves around whether we're going to murder each other. It just, all the downstream, intangible, unforeseen consequences of these things, the destabilization. And that's what serves particularly the GOP, but the establishment in general, but the GOP and the fascism that's upswelling, that it's evolving into. The chaos and the confusion and the fear and all the news stories that on the air, the propaganda networks that show the violence, that show the things, that reinforce the stereotypes. All of it serves their interests, their hegemony over your life, because it maintains that thing. Fear makes you easier to be manipulated. You fall in line. You go buy a gun. The world becomes more scary. The world's more violent. I also think the internet makes it all kind of worse. I mean, there's a lot of good about the internet, but I don't think the human mind has evolved to really process this much information, and it's somewhat overwhelming. It's crazy overwhelming. So more to this article, and then we're almost done. A 2013 Harvard study working paper came up with an even higher cost, $4 trillion to $6 trillion for just Iraq and Afghanistan, like the Brown study. The Harvard paper estimated that future medical care and disability benefits for veterans of these wars will near $1 trillion. The Harvard paper also attributes $750 billion in Pentagon medical and personnel costs to Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and also considers the cost of nation building in the two countries. Yeah. So even the accessible costs, it's several trillion. For your safety. We got to keep America safe. Don't you feel safer? Why don't you wake up every day and go, thank God we're spending $7 trillion on blowing up Muslim people and brown people all over the world, so that when I drive my Ford Escalade to the private school, I'm safer. Why don't we phrase healthcare spending in terms of safety? You die from lack of healthcare, just like you die from terrorism / violence / war / these quote unquote threats that are out there. Oh, that's death by policy. We don't use the word violence, but we should. You die because your society doesn't doesn't regard you as someone worthy of dignity. That's what it means to be marginalized. And I'm saying that as a fucking Midwestern white boy. White boy. I don't know. It's funny. So you get the point. AOC's great. I can't wait. I'm so glad that she's as articulate as she is on the optics, which means she's attractive. She does great. She has a very long career, and she will be making more appearances here on the Apocalypse Training headquarters. So, finally, as you recall, George W. Trump made an appearance at the Nationals World Series game, and he got booed. You'll remember this.
Tonight, you are joined by the President and First Lady of the United States.
All right, so you remember that. He got booed. It was a lot of fun. We talked about last week. Well, he needed a retry. George W. Trump wanted to go somewhere that loved him. So he attended, like the mob boss that he is, a UFC event. Now, you'd think a UFC event would be his crowd, would be the kind of folks that, embrace this kind of activity. It's consensual. I don't actually think it's that bad. I get why people look at UFC, this human cage fighting and human cockfighting, as with some disgust. Certainly, there's viewpoints where this kind of thing is insane, but these are the consensual behaviors between men and women. I actually was a cameraman for local UFC fights, believe it or not. I think we'll talk about that one of these days. So I've done 5 or 6 of those. I had a little production company that I got to know, and they, guy does these things where they are the video team. So I would be, thanks to my height and my ability to hold still, camera guy. So I'd stand on one of these. They are hexagons, not octagons, but I would literally be on the cage itself on a small platform, not tied in, totally not safe. You think you'd be like clipped to it or something, and holding a big camera that's wired up, and I have a it's called the comm system, and then the guy goes, all right, camera 1, ready, camera 1, okay, camera 1, okay, ready 2, camera 2, gear, watch your horizon, camera 2, okay, camera 2. So like they're telling you to, okay, and they tell you when you're on, okay, I'm getting into it now, but I'm standing above these things. Like I could literally reach out and just touch the fighters, and then they would kick my ass. That's the other thing too. I feel like I could beat up a guy my size who also has no training because I'm crazy and I have a high pain tolerance. I mean, you get the lucky shot in there, but I just go fucking nuts because I'm, a lot of big. It's a pretty deep well of anger in there somewhere. But anybody that's training, it just whoop my ass real quick. Just like even a little boxing, just like, oh Jesus, stop! No, don't quit punching my nose. But so I wouldn't want to fight a UFC guy. Is my point. They're pretty tough. Or even somebody working up to it, not even close. I wouldn't want to fight a child. It's random. So anyway, I've had some experience with UFC, seeing it really, really close, like right up front, where literally the blood could splatter on me. And these were bloody matches. There'd be blood all over the place. And like the guy I'd see this guy more than once because he was like the dude who owned part of the little community. It's like the farm team level. It's like the local, pretty rough and tumble stuff, but it's official. But it's like, this is where they source up and comers. So not the open mics of UFC, if you will, not quite that at the bottom, not like backyard wrestling, backyard fighting, but, like a sanctioned organization, but still the farm level of it. So I've seen these things really, really close, man, and it's something else. I'll ramble about that more. So Trump goes. You think this would be his audience? He shows up at one. Guess what happens? Oh, the little baby didn't get the love that he wanted. Nice. Now, there's a lot of cheering. There's a ton of cheering in there. But you hear the boos. He's booed. Hopefully he heard the boos. Man, that guy's brother. Speaking of booze. The wrong Trump drank himself to death. Jesus Christ. Trump is sober. Like, not like he used to drink and now he's sober. Like, he doesn't drink. I would love to learn that he is drunk all the time. That would at least be something of an explanation. Unbelievable. Imagine if he was drunk. God. His brother probably was decent. That's probably why he was overwhelmed by the stress of being a Trump. Man. Ugh. God. So anyway, so now Trump, what I hear is I saw on Twitter that there's plans for Trump to attend a Alabama college football game. He's got to get that love. I'm not sure if it was a direct quote, but some reporter, again, going around on Twitter, stated that he was jealous of the dog. I don't remember the dog's name, but the dog that was part of the al-Baghdadi raid in Syria a couple weeks back that killed that guy. The dog was getting more attention.
You remember the dog, great dog Conan, but when we took out al-Baghdadi, Conan, remember this? Conan got more publicity than President Trump. That's okay.
Like, you have successfully achieved your wildest dreams for a narcissist, to be the most scrutinized person in the world, the most talked about person in the world, and he will be for a long, 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 long time. Because the scandals are going to be trickling out for the rest of my lifetime. There'll be documentary after documentary. The Supreme Court legacy he's leaving, putting Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, both of these people should be impeached because of Trump, because of who put them in. I mean, hey, that's not how the system's supposed to work. Fuck off. Let's pack the courts. That doesn't reflect the interests of the majority of the people. Yet we're going to have to live under their... Like, it's so gross that Brett Kavanaugh will be the final arbiter of a lot of these things. Shouldn't he have to recuse himself from anything involving Trump? Anyway, Trump's legacy, even if it's bad, and it will be, because it is, and he deserves it, his children are going to haunt us forever now that they're massive, quote-unquote, celebrities. I mean, their profiles are much bigger now. They're media figures. They're always going to be around, squawking like the idiots that they are. Hypocrites. Disgusting people. And so that's what's so kind of frustrating about Trump, is that there's no way to not give him what he wants, which is attention. He's like a children's book monster. Like if the Grinch just wanted people to look at him. Just look at me. Just look at me. Just look at me. Just look at me. Clap, clap, clap. Talk about me. Talk about me. Talk about me. Talk about me. And yet somehow he persuaded enough people who are susceptible to this kind of thing, to the fascism, because of their frustration and their racism and their, the sexism. And they relate to this. They're also just their disposition of being comfortable with hierarchy, being comforted by hierarchy. So they put him in power. And now he has this daily, hourly, minute by minute purchase on society, where nobody can escape this fucker, particularly if you pay attention to politics. And we're going to hear about him forever. And his picture's going to be right up there on the wall of presidents. White guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, up to 43, 44. Black guy, 45. Worst white guy. Orange, worst white guy ever. And my only hope, and I've said this before, is that because they put the worst person in the world in such a prominent position, the world will snap out of its stupor and realize the scam that's going on. I mean, he is everything. He is what we have to defeat. But the war isn't just about beating him. It's about dismantling capitalism. And honestly, at best, I think in my lifetime, we will rewrite the rules to change it. But I also think, though, that people can be convinced of their own self-worth. So that's why they fight it so hard. That's why they fight expanding Medicaid in red states. That was one of the issues in the Kentucky race that was happening. That just happened yesterday, where the Democrat won, and he promises to bring back Medicaid. The Republican governor was Bevins, is taking it away. They don't want people to figure out that they have self-worth, because they can't take away socialist security. They can't take away Medicare. The boomers who enjoy those things deserve to have them. And George Bush tried it, and it was an immediate fall flat on its face disaster. So if they give us Medicare for all, the right-winger people who've been resisting it all this time because they believe the propaganda they're fed, they're comforted by it, by the porn stars on Fox News, telling them how to feel about the world with the dopey idiots they relate to. Just look at the Fox morning show Trump watches, for an example. They internalize the values of their oppressors. But if the socialists, the democratic socialists, the progressives, and we force the liberals to come along with us, and the corrupt Democrats like Pelosi and Schumer, I mean, she's one of the most dangerous people in this country too. Nancy Pelosi came out saying that Democrats have to follow pay-as-you-go rules, which means that if everything that you pass, you have to offset it with tax cuts or offset it by cutting other programs. Something the Republicans have never lived by. They talk about it, they never live by it. So she's going to do that in order to strangle, especially a progressive administration. I guarantee you'll see it. She'll try at least. Hopefully there'll be enough of a movement to oust her, let alone at least make her not impose that insane rule. So once we get it passed and lives get better, it will never go away. They can't take it away. They will try. They're trying to do that in England. They're trying to impose American-style medical care on the NHS and on people in England. So hopefully they are listening to us or watching America and saying, God damn, look at how stressed out they are in America. The accent is horrible. Sometimes I nailed an English accent, not that one. All right, guys. Hey, listen, we did it. We went really long. This is crazy long. Hopefully my new editing thing I'm doing here, just since if you're still listening at the end, you're probably... so I'm recording Premiere Pro. All the audio you're hearing is from video I'm playing in Premiere Pro editing software, which is running beautifully now that I have this better processor. It's really nice. And I'm hoping to just be able to sync up the video that I'm doing right now with the audio. Because before I was producing the audio, making some edits. I do occasionally pause, say something stupid or mark it or whatever. And then I go back and I look for the waveform in the timeline. And then I find that same waveform in the video. And it's not totally random. I have like markers and stuff, but then that's a much more manual process. So I'm hoping that I can just line up this video on my computer with the audio of the podcast. And I'm going to have to cut them all down a little bit. And then the video will be already in place. And I'm using the audio recording from the video as reference audio to sync it up, and you'll get the good audio out of the microphone. Yeah. I think it'll work. I think we might be onto something. So, thanks for being here for the ride. I hope you're enjoying the show. It's a really weird thing. I've got some guests lined up. I don't. I mean, I have feelers out. I mean, I have a few people who have said yes. I just have to schedule some things. And there'll be more to come. And thanks for doing this with me, being one of the listeners. So many shows in the world. So many ways to waste time. I figured out how to do Instagram stories now. So hook up, get set up on my Instagram for some stories. I don't know how to use that. It's weird that you can see who sees it. I don't like that. I don't want to know. Like, I want to know, but I don't want to know, because now I know people see when I see their stories. And now if all my friends are posting something, but I don't show up on this person saw it story. Now I think about like the social part of it, the little social engine in your mind that's always processing no matter what. Like, oh no, I gotta worry about that. I don't want to worry about that. I could choose not to, too. I realize that's an option. So, all right, guys, thank you for listening. Take care. Oh yeah, perfect fact. Fuck, I forgot. I like that idea. It's a good segment. But I've been up since 4:30. Here, I got to go to work. And fuck. That definitely will be back. Don't worry. Because there's so much to learn about American history and about American. That's the upending America's bullshit. That's the upending American, whatchamacallit, mythology. That's partly what I want to do with the show. In case you can't tell, the name Perfect Union is sarcastic. That should be clear. Good night. Take care of yourself. Try meditation. Don't worry, you'll feel silly the first time, but then you'll be like, oh yeah, that's better than scrolling through bullshit on my phone. And take care of yourself. All right? You deserve it. You deserve to feel better. You deserve to feel better. Yeah. You. Feel better, motherfucker. Good night. Bye.